Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In this podcast, we discuss mystical works of literature and how they relate to recovery. We hope you enjoy today's podcast episode.
Hello, this is Buddy C. Welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. Today, we will be talking about step 4. We'll talk a little bit about how we work the fourth step and how we work the fourth step with sponsees. Then we're going to talk about any quotes that we have from Taoist literature that would apply to the fourth step. There are some. Before we start, if you're new to the podcast, we talk about how Taoist principles relate to recovery. Most of these were written 23 to 2,500 years ago, and we have found that they resonate a lot of times with our ideas of the higher power or God. Is there a power greater? And how we relate to that power, or how we relate to what is. That seems to be where it's coming to. What is? How much do I fight what is going on right now? I didn't realize how much I resisted the present moment. And until I could sit moments at a time, I could start glimpsing how I am constantly pushing back on certain things in my life that I couldn't even see. That was a constant resistance. I think that's part of the human condition until we learn to let those things go and stop resisting, stop fighting, which is what the Tao's all about, is accepting what is and not being that constant fight. It used to be so bad that I had anger just under the surface all the time, just waiting to pop out. Why? Because I was fighting everything. And it would not have helped me if I had a pill that did away with my alcoholism. For some, that may be their issue, but my issue was this constant fight, this constant fear of losing something that I had, or not getting something that I thought I deserved or that I demanded, is how 12 and 12 says it. So we're taking a little detour away. We usually read a Taoist text and talk about it, but instead today we're talking about the fourth step and how Taoist text relates to the fourth step. I do want to talk about a resource we have at buddyc.org for you, free resource. They're all free. This one is all of the podcasts. We have a list of recovery and spiritual podcasts. Check those out. You can get to those from the menu at the top of the page. See if some of those might not speak to you. Then we talk about a synchronistic moment that we might have had this week. It's funny, sometimes my synchronistic moments, I had one this week where I had a project I wanted to do, but I knew I needed a computer guy to help me with it. So I did my normal thing of letting it go. I need a computer guy for this, or at least that's what I think. I'm powerless over who I should get to help me with this. I'm open. It's the way I process it. Deep breath and let it go. Maybe a day or two later. I don't know exactly how long. An old friend of mine texted me. It was recovery related. I need someone in recovery that had a good bit of time. And he texted me and said, "Hey, I want to let you know I really enjoy the podcast. Y'all are doing great, putting out some great content. Thank you so much." One of those thank you podcasts, grateful podcasts. And I texted him, "Thanks, man. We need to get together some blah, 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 blah." And we had a good conversation and just called up, which was good. It'd been years since we'd talked. Oh, it was a day or two later. I'm just this thick. Day or two later, I bet he would be a good person to get to help me with this. I wonder how I came up with that all by myself, right? I think there's a Tao verse that talks about that. I did it all by myself. No, I can see that was put together. He's interested and we're moving forward. A lot of times this works in the background without us even knowing that it's at work, this synchronicity. And it works so much easier when I'm open-hearted, open-minded. Don't think I have things figured out. Grateful for what comes along. Let's get started on our topic. Would anyone like to share kind of their thoughts on the fourth step? Because I like to do that first with anyone that would like to, what they think of the fourth step, how they work the fourth step, how they work it with sponsees. The fourth steps made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And the principle that we usually associate with the fourth step is courage. One definition of courage is the ability to face fear, danger, difficulty, or uncertainty with confidence and determination. It doesn't mean that you're free of fear. It means that you face fear. It means that you move forward anyway. Kate?
The first fourth step that I ever did, I was terrified. I had a lot of things in my mind that I'd accumulated a lot of secrets in my alcoholism and drug addiction that I thought these were things I had done that were absolutely shocking and terrible. And I thought, if I tell anyone these things, like, they're gonna hate me. And so I had all of these secrets kind of lined up inside my head. I will never tell anybody this. I will never tell anybody that. And I really didn't want to. I wanted to go to my grave with them. So with the fourth step, my sponsor that I had with my first fourth step told me that, first of all, if I kept things back, like, it could lead me to drink again. And she told me that if I haven't done the things you've done, I've probably thought about doing them. So that kind of eased me a little bit. And then when I did share them, she often shared things she'd done. She may not have done the same things, but she'd done other things that were maybe comparable, or she'd say nothing, and she'd just look at me like with caring in her eyes. So, it was actually great, and I felt much better afterwards.
Thank you, Kate. I remember my first fourth step had one person on it, and it was really a minor resentment. It wasn't major. I wasn't grasping what this was about yet. But my sponsor, I think, did the right thing. He didn't push me. He said, okay. Then afterward, as time went on, I did another fourth step. Then the real stuff started coming out because I was not able to do a real moral inventory.
I agree with that, because I have done multiple fourth steps since then, and more like truth came out since then. And things that I brushed over in the first fourth step or pretended didn't bother me so I could get through them, or didn't even consider in the fourth step to be anything that I worried about. I didn't think of them at all. They didn't even come to my mind. Came out later as things that were important to me. But in the fourth step, I either wasn't ready for them, or they just didn't, it wasn't the right time.
Thank you, Kate. If we're looking at this stuff as gradually awakening, how can we see clearly everything at a particular phase? I totally agree with that. And I thought it was the people that I hated the most. And really, this fourth step is about a moral inventory, not a list of your sins. I've got some notes here. Actually, these notes are from these sober meditations. When I did the meditations, I made some notes, and I'm just going back and looking at them some. Brian, you have something?
I really appreciate y'all's vulnerability of sharing that where you were the first time you did a fourth step. Because for me, I was sitting there thinking about it. I was just a freaking basket case. I didn't have the capacity or the bandwidth to even put very few thoughts together. I had all the big stuff on there. I talked about my financial stuff, and I had the IRS on there and the big stuff, but I didn't have the capacity to drill down into the things that, like, to dig into the septic tank and dig out the things that I was really shameful about. And I've had a lot of growth around that with working with sponsees and listening to them share a four step. I've told people before, I said, hey, man, there's nothing that you can say that's going to shock somebody. If it's really shameful, I've probably done it twice because shame was a big part of my story and a big driver. It's a powerful experience each time you go through it.
I ask you a question. Do you work a new fourth step when you take on a new sponsee? Do you go through the steps again?
I haven't necessarily done that per se, but it has been on my mind. And I've got a guy that he's been dragging his feet a little bit, and I've talked to him about it. And I really feel this pull that I need to just sit down and do it with him. Hey, I'll share mine with you, and then you share yours with me, and we go through this together.
I ask if we go through the steps again, when we get like the fourth step and the eighth and ninth, we talk about any amends they have not made yet. And we go through it as if they haven't made any, and then just list the ones that are current or new ones that you need to take care of that you've been dragging your feet about.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. I've had one sponsor who wanted to go back through the steps again with me when he became my sponsor. And it was the right thing for me. It was time to address some things that I just never addressed.
Yeah.
And I'm staying sober, so why do I want to address them?
Yeah, I got them stuffed down in my feet.
Yeah, I'm still okay. But of course, addressing those things brought more freedom. Thank you, Brian. Libby.
When we talk about the fourth step and we're talking with new people about it, it's often daunting to them, and they quickly make ideas about what it's going to involve and what it means. And I'm looking at the Buddy C website, and I noticed that there's a quote put next to the episode that we did on step 2 from verse 37 of the Tao that says, when there is silence, one finds peace. When there is silence, one finds the anchor of the universe within himself. And this fourth step is a journey to peace. We have the things that we've done and the things that we have left undone, and the things that we feel resentment for, and the things where we feel wronged, all within us. And this helps quiet it so that this verse becomes to apply to us, that we can have a silence in us and a peace in us. And I'm going to read it again. When there is silence, one finds peace. When there is silence, one finds the anchor of the universe within himself. So this step in our journey is an important step towards gifting ourselves peace and the ability to have comfort and feel the love we have for people and the joy we have in life. And then, of course, it becomes a gift to the whole world. Here's another person that has manifesting love and joy, world. So it's such a gift to have this fourth step.
Thank you, Libby. It is. And it's where a lot of us start finding some freedom. A lot of us, as we share this into the fifth, we start getting some freedom from our isms. I'm going to go through a little list of things here that I use with sponsees, and also that I used, like I said, with Sober Meditations. You can access those at sobermeditations.org. All 400 plus are there. What is a moral inventory? An inventory is simply a list of everything, if you're going to, as a business, it's everything the business owns, including its raw materials, means of production, finished products, and so on. The purpose of an inventory is to identify the stock that is old, obsolete, or spoiled so that it can be thrown out and placed with the stock that can be used or sold. Our moral inventory serves the same purpose. We want to find out what it is about ourselves that we need to throw out. In other words, to change, to have a more serene and productive life. To achieve that goal, we have to examine our lives to this date and the negative characteristics that have caused us so much pain. That's from the book 12 Step Sponsorship, I think is the title, by Hamilton B. Yeah, it's a moral inventory. It's an honest look at ourselves. What would searching and fearless mean? Searching and fearless moral inventory. Let's start with those things that keep us up at night. That's where I normally say start. What do you list? Those people that you avoid, those things you've done that you're ashamed of, that you've held deep, deep within. Here's a quote from the 12 and 12, page 43. We want to find exactly how, when, and where our natural desires have warped us. We want to look squarely at unhappiness that has caused others ourselves. By discovering what our emotional deformities are, we can move toward their correction. Without a willing and persistent effort to do this, there can be little sobriety or contentment for us. Without a searching and fearless moral inventory, most of us have found that the faith which really works in daily living is still out of reach.
One of the things we know about this program is that it's not an a la carte program. Like you can't just say, what I'm going to do is step 4 and I'm going to skip the part of having a sponsor. And it's very inconvenient to go to meetings. It really is. I'm like tired after I work, etc. Like it's not an a la carte program. It's like daily prayer and meditation. It's have a sponsor. It's go to the meeting. It's read the literature. One of the advantages, I think, in going to meetings is having conversation about the 12 steps is you can hear the different things people are using when they choose how to do a moral inventory. And one of the things that I used early on was a book called the Family Virtue Guide, which is made to use with kids. And I work with kids. I'm a piano teacher. I was already familiar with this book, and it has 52 different virtues in it. I can go through and look at how am I doing with this virtue. That's one way to define a moral inventory. That it's not part of any literature from any of the programs, but it's an idea. And I hope that we are all encouraging each other to inventory based on all the moral compasses we use in our life. And so that will be who we are. Like, I think a person can be compared to a mine, like where there's jewels in it, or diamonds and rubies, and that what we want to do is free these diamonds and rubies and polish them so that you become more who you are through all of the steps we're doing, but especially this 4th step, because it has people become all stiff and like your future is being defined by your past until you get free from it by these steps. And I don't have it here right now because I didn't realize I was going to go this direction right now, but I know there's a part in the Tao where it talks about how life in trees, like a new tree is very subtle and flowing, and ready for life. But if it starts getting really rigid, then it's going to get blown down by the wind. It's not ready for life. It's ready for death. So the way for us to be ready for life is to be ready to flow. And this 12th step is to set us up both to set our sights on where we want to flow and to free us from things that have been preventing us from flowing.
Thank you, Libby.
Buddy, what comes to mind for me is, you ever see these videos of the guys that trim the palm trees? and how the tree flexes, how tall these trees stand. And they're usually coastal areas where at some point in time, the wind really freaking blows. And they're able to withstand that and just go with the flow.
Thus, an army without flexibility never wins a battle. A tree that is unbending is easily broken. A man is born gentle and weak. At his death is hard and stiff. Plants are tender and filled with sap. At their death, they are withered and dry. The stiff and unbending is a disciple of death. The gentle and yielding is a disciple of life. That's verse 76. I reminded that when you were talking, Libby.
I was thinking about verse 23. Express yourself completely, then keep quiet. Be like the forces of nature. When it blows, there is only wind. When it rains, there is only rain. When the clouds pass, the sun shines through. If you open yourself to the Tao, you are at one with the Tao, and you can embody it completely. If you open yourself to insight, you are at one with insight, and you can use it completely. If you open yourself to loss, you are at one with loss, and you can accept it completely. Open yourself to the Tao, then trust your natural responses, and everything will fall into place. That makes me think of the fourth step, because you are having to really, to me, your entire thought process of how you built all these resentments, you have all these fears, you are opening them to your higher power. You're experiencing the feelings, like it's talking about being at one with the rain, and you're doing that, and you're focusing on those feelings, and then you're done with it. For me, that verse really hones in on really focusing in on what you were thinking, what you were doing, what you want, and really opening yourself up to your higher power and just being.
What translation was that, Kate?
It's Stephen Mitchell, I think.
That's verse 23.
Yeah.
That speaks directly to the fourth step.
It's beautiful because the fourth step is a lot about becoming yourself, like you were saying. I love that translation, but also I like one of the other ones. The very last line says, "He who does not trust enough will not be trusted." And you can't even trust yourself unless you're first trusting to face up to these things. I think that Stephen Mitchell expresses the whole thing really beautifully. That was a really beautiful point. But I really also like this part about how this has to do, because with courage, we were saying, and it also definitely has to do with trust. 22 also, to me, speaks to the fourth step. Like this Stephen Mitchell one, its translation is saying, if you want to become whole, let yourself be partial. So admit that you're not perfect here. And it says, if you want to become straight, let yourself be crooked. So notice the ways that you're straight and the ways that you're crooked, and take full notice. I just said it anyway. If you want to become full, let yourself be empty. If you want to be reborn, let yourself die. If you want to be given everything, give everything up. Or Ron Hogan, part of his says, if you want wisdom, empty your mind. If you want the world, renounce your riches. No matter where we're at in life, when we start doing the 12 steps, most of us at the beginning had very little problem saying that our life is out of control, or we wouldn't have started in on this. And this says why it's out of control, because you want to be whole without letting yourself be partial. So here we are in fourth step, where we want to let ourselves be partial and make room for the higher power.
How about verse 81 talks about true words are not beautiful, beautiful words are not true. We say these things that we think are really deep secrets. Why would it help for me to shine light on this. Those words may not seem beautiful or seem like of value, but in reality, they're of the most value. You can thank Chet for that one. Chet came up with that. He's a closet alcoholic. So we've covered the purpose of the fourth step. We've talked about it being a moral inventory, what searching and fearless may mean. Next, why do we write it? Why do we write the fourth step? Why can't we just think about it and pray and ask God to take care of it? We're done. Keep it to ourselves. Kate?
I found when I was writing my first fourth step and fourth step since, though it became easier, I would write about an experience or resentment, and I would start like skimming over it and twisting it around to make myself look good. And then I would look down at it and think, wait, no, that I can't do that. Like, I'm trying to make this honest inventory of myself. So I'd cross it out and write what I really meant, what really happened, or what my real thought was, or
So it's not a
whatever.
dishonest moral inventory, it's an honest moral inventory.
Honest. I'm trying to be honest here. I found that my mind would twist things around even when I was intending to write an honest moral inventory that was completely true for myself. If I were just doing it mentally and talking about it, I could see my mind completely rewriting history without me even necessarily realizing it. So for me, I got a lot more truth out of it by rewriting it, or by writing and rewriting it.
I was just thinking about, to me, I've heard people share that when you put things down on paper, you're letting it go out of your head and flowing out of your arm down onto that paper. And there's something powerful about writing those things down, and something vulnerable about putting it on paper and laying it out there for others to see versus just vomiting all the crap that you've done in your life onto somebody else. When you put it down on paper, it's right there in black and white.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, my notes in regards to that was to reference later for your 8th step list and 9th step amends, to identify patterns. It's what we see in the 4th step is usually patterns of a fear. I found that for me, there was 2 underlying fears. I had this people pleasing thing, or still have, where I want everyone to be happy with me, but I'll put on the front that I don't give a flying flip about what you think. But in reality, I really do. Okay. And secondly, this fear of financial insecurity. I'm doing better with both, but I still see them pop up, and I have to surrender my way through and work some amends. But that's the things that we start seeing are those patterns. Also, this is used in the 5th step. And we are doing a portion of the 5th step, I think, when we're writing this down, which could be seen as a way that we admit to ourselves. And what you talked about, Brian, with gets these things out of our head, gets them on paper, and many times just takes the power out of them.
Absolutely. I had a little instance the other day. I've got such a problem with money. And in my mind, money will fix everything. Long story short, refrigerator went out. I'm going to lose all the groceries. Money. Got to buy a new refrigerator. Money.
Have you filed bankruptcy yet? Are you heading to bankruptcy?
No, I haven't. And I'm not coming to you guys live from under a bridge. Anyway, so I go buy a refrigerator. They deliver it. Over a couple of days, I'm not happy with this thing. And then I'm recognizing that I was in fear, made a less than ideal decision. I feel that spring cranking. And so I'm still like avoiding dealing with this. So I call the customer support. I'm on the phone with them for about 2 hours, and they never resolved my issues. And full disclosure, I was kind. I was very proud of myself. And so I thought, I'm returning this thing. So I call Lowe's on the phone. I'm still avoiding. They got a terrible connection with their phone. I'm not sure what's going on. So I'm like going, I've got to deal with this. So I drive up there 30 minutes up to Lowe's, and I'm walking in like trying to put my best version of Brian on, but it's like I'm prepared for a fight, man. I'm going, I'm here to win. And so anyway, I walk in and I tell the guy, I said, hey, look, here's all my papers. I bought this thing. I'm not happy with it. And then it was like this brief moment of silence. And he looks at me and says, okay, you want me to get you another one? And it was just like,
Yeah.
and I told him, I said, to be honest, no, I would like a different brand. It just all worked out. If I wasn't aware of my buttons and my fear and just all these things that are wrapped up around any kind of situation with money, like I wouldn't have been able to do that. I would have been a gorilla walking in the front door of Lowe's. And I was really kind with the guys after. I told them, I said, I really appreciate you taking care of me on this. I'm just grateful I left there in a good place.
Thank you, Brian. I remember the last time I bought a refrigerator, I was still married, and the guys that delivered it were hitting on my wife. I walked in the room, and instead of making me mad, I said, oh, that's good. That made me proud. So that fed my ego. Yeah, all right. That's twisted, That's feeding more of my fear that I'm not adequate. That
Yeah.
kind of a thing. It's crazy how our fears can twist anything around. That's the big part of this fourth step, is just being able to see some of that, so that we're able to start moving in a direction that those fears don't dominate our lives. They dominate our lives less and less, would be a way to say that.
I started getting this tape in my head, this ego that I've wasted 4 hours of my time trying to resolve this issue with this refrigerator. But I was ready to go in there and just be like, hey, here's my receipt. You know who I am. Like, you've wasted my time. In reality, I've got the damn day off work. What would I have been doing other than throwing the ball with my freaking dog? I'm not doing anything of great importance. And I was able to just put that aside. Man, I just don't ever want to be the guy I used to be.
But it's funny how it was your fear that actually created that situation.
It was absolutely my fear.
I've started when I'm making financial decisions, asking myself, what decision would I make here if there was no fear of financial insecurity? Would I make this decision differently?
Yeah.
Is it my fear that I'm allowing to make this decision? Or if money was no object, what refrigerator would I buy? Not meaning that and I don't care how many zeros I had in the bank, I would not buy the Mac Daddy, whatever, that wipe your ass when you went by it. Not one of those. I'd never buy one of those.
You need to turn your background off where we could see it in the background. Be like, what a flex.
I'm at the lake and everything is secondhand. So you wouldn't be impressed, trust me. Or you'd be impressed, Brian. That's for sure.
my thought would be, Buddy's at the freaking lake.
Oh, that's right. We didn't take that in consideration. That's funny.
When I left there, I told Brandy 2 or 3 times, like, my wife goes through a lot of ice. And especially like when she's playing tennis. But so anyway, long story short, the one that we picked out, we were open and found one that had a secondary ice maker. And it was like, you know what? This will avoid trips to the ice machine to put ice in the deep freeze. And I just showed up and I was open. Full disclosure, it cost us about another $150, but that's okay. I just felt really good about it and at peace with it because I was open.
Thanks, Brian. Now I want to talk a minute about resentments as part of the fourth step and then what we actually list. Okay, when we're talking about resentments in the fourth step, usually what most people do, they name the thing they resented, the cause, the behavior, the area of life that it was affected. wrong behavior that we contributed to the situation, what kind of payoff did we get for keeping the resentment? Then we talk about the solution for that in step 5. When I'm working this with a sponsee, they come to me with it written out, and then we do 4, 5, 6, 7 all together for one resentment. I found that's the easiest way to do it. I want to have tools in their hand when they tell me about it. I don't want to wait and them leave that open scab, that open wound there without any kind of aid at all until we're together again or the next time. You could say, who are you pissed off at? Why are you pissed at them? How it affects you and what is your part? That's another way of seeing that. They do a sample inventory on page 65 in the big book. Their example would be the resentful at Mr. Brown, the attention Mr. Brown gave to their wife. It affected your sex relations, and we were angry and dishonest, told lies about him to try to get him fired. Then there's other lists involved. We do a fear list, we do a sexual misconduct list, we do a selfishness and self-centered list, and then we review those things. Then I add an assets list, because if we're doing a moral inventory, we need to look at the positives as well, because we're so busy beating up on ourselves, most of us. That's really how most people approach the 4th step. That it's good to see some of the good things and good traits that we have in our life. And that's actually supported by the 12 and 12 on page 46. The sponsor probably points out that the newcomer has some assets which can be noted along with his liabilities. This tends to clear away morbidity and encourage balance. As soon as he begins to be more objective, the newcomer can fearlessly, rather than fearfully, look at his own defects. And another thing we can do is make a gratitude list of what we are grateful for at this moment, and that can help us to uncover some assets that we may not know we have. Brian?
And for me, that gratitude list is something I do every day, and it's an absolute game changer for me. I keep a note in my phone. I start a new one every morning. I try not to have any electronics for about the first hour of the morning, but when I get the wheels turning, I punch in a date, start my gratitude list, and I try to pause when agitated or doubtful and come up with 1 or 2 things that I'm grateful for. And it's been an absolute game changer with me. And I heard a guy on a podcast one time, he's talking about in the big book, I think it's on page 119, where it says pause and count your blessings. He was debating that people say, oh, the gratitude list is not recovery or it's not any part in the big book or the anonymous programs. And he had brought that up, and I thought that was pretty good.
It is. Thank you. I'm going to go through a few Dow quotes here. If you guys have any, we've got time. We're going to run through those. Letting go of self-deception. He who knows others is wise. He who knows himself is enlightened. That's from verse 33. Mitchell. The cores, and this is about an inventory, and getting to know ourselves is the first step toward that. Returning to the root is stillness. Stillness is returning to one's nature. That's verse 16 from Guy Fu Fang. Can you step back from your own mind and thus understand all things? Verse 10. How do I step back from my own mind? Writing things down helps me to step back. I think that's why a lot of people in recovery journal. I don't normally journal. That's not, I don't know. For me, that's just not something that I don't daily journal. But if I'm having an issue with something, I will journal the issue, and I will write, I guess would be writing a 4th step on the issue. I write it out. And anytime I write out whatever it is, I get much better understanding when I can see it rather than just think about it. Brian?
Buddy, to me, your writing and service work that you do, I'm not trying to puff your ego, but to me, from my perspective, that's like next level journaling.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that, Brian. And there's times my ego is fairly in check with that. I'm not always, but fairly. I'm grateful for that. You're right. That is when I write, it alleviates many conversations with my sponsor because I'm getting it out there. Now, don't get me wrong. If it's bothering me, I will talk to my sponsor about it. I'm not going to not talk to my sponsor. But between writing and between working with sponsees, alleviates probably 80% of sponsor time. Kate?
I often can't figure out what I even actually think about something sometimes until I start writing it out. And then once I have it written out, I realize, that's what I think.
Huh. That's strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's back to that our thoughts aren't real, but our feelings are. See, our feelings are what's real, and the feelings are driving the thoughts. So if we can take a step back and say, how do I feel about this, not what I think about this, then I think we're heading in the right direction. That's become more real to me lately.
Feelings aren't always facts.
We hear that, but that feeling is there for a reason. Thoughts are not always fact, but I'm feeling that there's a reason I'm feeling that way.
Yeah. If it's historical, or if it's hysterical, it's historical.
Yeah.
It's pricking something that's probably not related to the refrigerator. I guarantee you that.
Exactly.
It's not a traumatic event where I had to buy another refrigerator 10 years ago.
And you can't say those feelings aren't real. They're real feelings, even if they're based on something that's not real.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that goes against what I've thought in the past. My feelings do come from something, and those feelings need to be addressed. I can't push them down anymore.
It's that magic, for me, it's that magic magnifying mind that
Yes.
I get somewhere with my thoughts when I pay attention to that, like those intuitive feelings, because there's something intuitive about those. They come from my intuitive part of me. Those feelings do, I think.
Good. I'm glad y'all didn't just call me down on that. Maybe that touches something. Here's one from the Wensa. When people are in error, they do not see it as error. When they see it as error, it is no longer error. That one's a little deeper. When people are in error, they do not see it as error. I think it's just natural for me to be resentful, natural for me to be angry. When they see it as an error, as in something that can be corrected, it's no longer something that I accept as being normal. Just the fact that we shine light on it, it loses its power. And that's what we talk about in the fifth step. You guys have any other text or thoughts or?
I just thought this was a good conversation.
I think so too. I don't want to take Taoist text and make it say something it doesn't. But if this is truly one path we can take up the mountain, then it's going to shine light on all these steps because these steps are basic spirituality, getting us to turn that light within and start seeing more of our true nature. And I loved what my friend said, that at the bottom of the mountain, all these paths look different, but the closer we get to the top, the more they look alike. I thought that was good. So the further we go down this path, the more it's going to look like maybe our Christianity, maybe our Buddhism or our Sikhism or any of all the other ism religions out there. Libby?
I have a quote that is not Tao at all that I think is important. We started out this discussion by mentioning how much courage is an important part. And of course, courage always makes us realize that there's fear involved somewhere. And there's a quote from one of the American prisoner of war survivors in Vietnam, Admiral James Stockdale. And he was asked about his mentality under captivity. And he said, "You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they might be." And I feel implied in that is that turn your attention to understanding your current reality as thoroughly as you can, instead of getting lost in these fears and things that have your mind ruminating. Focus on the next goal, which is to take this inventory.
Thank you, Libby. Have we mentioned verse 16? I think I read a quote from it, but we haven't looked at the whole thing. Let's read it right quick as a closing. Empty your mind of all thoughts. Let your heart be at peace. Watch the turmoil of beings, but contemplate their return. How do I empty my mind? One way is by writing this stuff on paper. Each separate being in the universe returns to the common source. Returning to the source is serenity. If you don't realize the source, you stumble in confusion and sorrow. When you realize where you come from, you naturally become tolerant, disinterested, amused, kind-hearted as a grandmother, dignified as a king, immersed in the wonder of the Tao. You can deal with whatever life brings you, and when death comes, you are ready. That process for me only starts when I get those 6 secrets out on paper and start the process of surrendering to those things. Because step 4 is the start. It's not the end. That's the beginning. Then we have tools that we can use until we can identify what it is or say, that's resentment. And that's part of what this verse 16, I think, is talking about. How do I empty my mind? It starts with this process.
Reminded me of another thing about how we have to use all the aspects of the program, which is while you're working the 4th step, you are still using the slogans. So what you just said really makes us think about let go and let God.
Or as Butterfly Pam used to say, let go or get dragged.
I think I've shared about my mind, which is Eeyore.
Yeah.
And my sponsor one time, he was just like, "You have got this inner Eeyore. You have got to let go of that." It's a work in progress. I made a tremendous amount of progress about it. But sometimes when we have a newcomers meeting, I'll introduce myself as Brian, aka Eeyore.
I have learned, Brian, if I shine light on that in conversation, even in a joking way, it helps.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It helps. Especially when my ego wants to point me out as something special. Because I have found that if I don't deal with it, there will be a situation come up that will truly embarrass me. It's happened over and over again when I haven't dealt with those things. That's a topic for another day. Anything else, guys, before we close? Great conversation about the 4th step. Thank you. We'll move on to 5 next week. If there's nothing else, guys, have a great week and hope to see you next week. Thank you. Hello, this is Buddy C. I wanted to make you aware of several recovery-related resources that I've posted in the episode description. These resources include a list of recovery podcasts, a free sober meditation app, daily recovery email, shared Google recovery calendars. Hope you put some of these resources to use and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends in recovery.